why didn't you check up on me? Or I was just going through this. Well, did you tell them? Like, that's not fair to get on them for not supporting you if you're not sharing that stuff with them. And I get it's hard to open up to people about those mental health struggles, but at the same time, you cannot chastise somebody for not being in your corner or supporting you if they don't even know what's wrong. See, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I have tons of people now that I can tell this no shower, didn't brush my teeth story, and they're not gonna judge me for it. You gotta be willing to meet in the middle. You have to have a survivor mentality and not a victim mentality of you're never reaching out for help, but you're also complaining about nobody helping you. I'm a very sweet, kind-hearted person, but I can also be very blunt and be like, you got to just shake yourself up sometimes and not be the victim. A survivor is able to reach out. A survivor is able to evolve. It might take you the rest of your life, but you've got to be willing to do the work.
Welcome to the No Streetlights podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Tim. We're veterans, here to talk about mental health, resilience, and the real struggles we face every day.
Our goal is to foster kindness through understanding. So, let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome.
Today's episode is one of those conversations that's going to sit with you in the best kind of way. We're honored to be joined by someone whose resilience and heart are truly next level.
Caralyn Dreyer is a survivor of traumas like SA, DV, and even a suicide attempt. So make sure you're ready. This may be a triggering episode.
But Caralyn is more than that. She's a mental health researcher and a storyteller who's turning the darkness she had to traverse into something powerful.
Yeah, she runs a blog called Darkness to Dialogue, and on it she talks about the hard stuff, living with depression and anxiety while navigating healing. Luckily, she does it in a way that feels warm, like an honest conversation with someone who's been there. Kind of like us.
Caralyn, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, you guys, and thank you for the fabulous intro. That was awesome. You guys are so sweet. That was so nice. But I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, you're the one doing all the hard work. We're the ones that are just, we take your work and we just want to highlight it, but you're the one putting in the time and effort. So, you're the incredible one here.
Thank you.
No doubt.
Bring it on. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. I'm just
all right, let's see here. My notebook of nothing but.
We are going to get started with something a little heavy, Tim.
Yeah, true. So kind of just jumping into it, I feel like there's so much we have to talk about with you here today. And, it's not very often that we get to sit down and have somebody whose light is shining so brightly. But I do want to mention, you've been through more than most people could possibly imagine, but you've come out becoming this powerful voice of healing. Can you kind of take us back a little bit to what life looked like before that healing began for you?
Well, I don't even know. I guess I'll start like a little bit with childhood, because honestly, once I got to 19, it was downhill for decades, to be honest with you. So I grew up in a small town. I'm adopted. So that brought its own challenges. It's interesting that you say kind of before the healing process, but I feel like I started off kind of like on the wrong foot in life, so to speak. Like even as a child, like being adopted and being in a predominantly white community, like I dealt with racism and discrimination and stuff like that. And then not feeling like I fit in with my family. I feel like that was like the starting point and the foundation for like a lot of stuff that happened after that. But, I grew up, we traveled around when I was a kid. Every summer we went to a different part of the country. I was a typical kid. I loved to play outside. This is like pre all these tablets and all that kind of nonsense. We actually had to find our own fun.
When you had to be present.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like go outside and ride bikes around the neighborhood or whatever.
Exactly.
Or literally just walk to JR's Donut Castle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so it like all American childhood for the most part. We went to church. I can remember even as a child, I knew I am not living in my hometown for the rest of my life. By fifth grade, I had planned out the college I was going to go to, which was going to be Penn State. I wrote them a letter because that was the assignment in class. They're like, write a letter to the college you want to go to. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to Penn State. I always just knew there was like more out there than what I had grown up with, which was like pretty sheltered and like in a box. So I was ready to run, honestly, like my whole life. I even tried to run away in sixth grade. I only made it to the bathroom because
Wow.
I only made it to the bathroom. Yes, because I had to hide. I had to hide after school because I had to make sure, you know, no teachers were like, oh, you got to go catch the bus. So I hid in the bathroom. 20 minutes later, I hear my name on the PA system. Caralyn Dreyer, could you please come to the office? And my mom had obviously called. And I don't know where the heck I was going or what I was doing, but even at that young of an age, I was already trying to like escape my life. And I know it was because of social things that were going on. My home life was not terrible in the sense, like I wasn't abused, I wasn't neglected, we were provided for, but just kind of like the emotional stuff, the emotional development didn't really happen. So even at that age, I just was always trying to run away from myself, I suppose, not knowing that's what it was at that age. I feel like I really just started life on the wrong foot in a lot of ways. And that's not to say I was miserable as a child, but I know I probably suffered from depression for sure, like in the adolescence. Also, not growing up in a household where we were taught how to process our emotions was extremely detrimental. It led to me developing an eating disorder, probably like late middle school.
Gosh.
Yeah, that was more an issue of I developed early. I had a different body shape than my classmates. And so I'm sure I wasn't fat, but as we were talking about before this, in our heads, like everything about ourselves is so different than from what the rest of the world sees. That's when the eating disorder started. It was a combination of calorie restriction and then purging. I wasn't a binge eater. That identity stuff and not knowing how to deal with those emotions, it just already in middle school, high school, just started me off. I just was never really happy or at peace, I think.
Yeah, you spent your whole childhood trying to be worthy of love and feeling like you didn't deserve it.
Yes, like I would feel guilty when I got gifts, like for birthdays or Christmases.
Yeah.
It was the most bizarre thing. I would feel so guilty opening up gifts.
I see you.
And I, as an adult, I was like, how sad. I was like so sad for myself. Like, how terrible as a child to get something that no one's really expecting anything in return and you still don't think that you're worthy of it. I mean, it's like no wonder a lot of us as adults have been walking around unhealed and lost for so long because little things like that. And then you feel kind of weird telling people. They're like, what's wrong with you? Like, I loved getting gifts as a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So if I may, you've brought something really deep up for me. I've already got a page and a half of notes and we've been recording for 5 minutes? So something I saw on, whatever that show is where they blow glass, Blown Away, they had to create a piece based on their mental health or their childhood. I think it was actually their childhood. This young woman, I think she was the youngest one in the competition, made the hamster tunnels, but she made it an enclosed loop. And she said, I've been depressed as long as I can remember. And that's something that I identify with. And clearly you do as well. And she said, this is a physical representation of getting trapped in your cyclical thoughts. Always just repeating the same line and the same line to destroy yourself.
Yes.
And the other two hosts had a little bit of privilege that they hadn't acknowledged, so they didn't really understand the piece, and they were like, it's pretty basic, like the execution. So they weren't super impressed, but I know
They weren't blown away.
Yeah, they were not blown away. She was not best in blow that day. But in your blog, you've mentioned feeling like a prisoner of your own thoughts and emotions, even after you've escaped abuse. So how could you even explain what it's like living within that fog?
Okay, so this is a good way to explain it. In dating relationships post the DV, I would often hear like the voice of my abuser and whomever I was dating. So let's say they were like, "Oh, you forgot to wash these dishes or whatever." Like totally calm, pleasant, whatever the case may be. In my perspective and what I hear is like somebody criticizing me rather. So it's like you look at things through the lens of either being healed or unhealed from things. And that has created like a fog, like you say. And I don't know, I might be like this for the rest of my life, to be honest with you, because I was in more than one abusive relationship. And honestly, up until a few years ago, I really didn't even know where a lot of the things were coming from. So now that I'm more self-aware that I need to start listening to people for who they really are and maybe not from what I'm hearing from the past. I mean, I intentionally have to talk myself through these things. I don't just wake up one day and I'm in a relationship and I can function, shall we say, well, in a healthy manner. So it's frustrating because on the days when things are cool and it's like smooth sailing, clear view, it's very disappointing as well because I know it's not going to be like that every day. Unfortunately, it can be very discouraging. It can feel like a hopeless situation, but I just have to like pull myself up every day or whatever the situation may be by, look, this is how we need to view these things because your view of the world depends upon your experiences. I think that as I'm learning to view the world as more of a trusting, supportive place, it's easier for me to navigate through that fog a little bit and see like a light at the end of the tunnel. But it can be like a daily struggle sometimes. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain those things unless you've been through it.
There's a lot of complex traumas and a lot of complex emotions that you had to deal with, even as a child, that most adults couldn't even put into words themselves. The simple fact that, you're 6 years old and you're already feeling like the social, stigmas surrounding just who you are and just simply existing. That's so difficult and complicated. And there's so many people who have privilege that have no idea what that feels like. And honestly, that makes my heart hurt a lot to hear that as a child, you had to face those emotions without even understanding them. I've talked about it a couple of times, but, throughout my childhood, I had to deal with complex, most would say like adult emotions, such as like understanding and coming to terms with grief.
Parentification in a way.
Yeah. And, hearing what you had to go through and kind of comparing it to the best example I have, which is myself, I have no idea how I would have been able to face that. So, we started this off by saying that you're a person whose light shines so bright and, you're just constantly reinforcing that with what you're telling us here. So seriously, incredible. And at the same time, like speaking to, your inner child, I'm so sorry you had to face that.
It was really rough. I journaled and had diaries though. So I will say that that had to have helped me out a lot. But at the same token, when you're a child and you're writing in a diary, it's different than when you're an adult because as an adult, you can process the stuff that you're writing down. As a child, you're literally just finding a place for your thoughts and you kind of just leave it at that. Like I would literally write to my diary like it was my friend. I'd be like, "Oh, hey, how was your day?" Knowing a piece of paper was just a piece of paper for the day, but that was like my diaries were like my friends and it was helpful. But like I said, at the same time, I really needed somebody to help me break down those emotions. And unfortunately, I don't believe that my parents were taught that. And so it was not their fault that they could not help me with those things. So I'm more forgiving about that now the older I get. It's very frustrating, absolutely, especially since I'm a parent myself. However, I have to have grace for them because I know my grandparents everyone's wonderful in my family. However, I know that the cycle of unprocessed emotions and the inability to face those things is a generational cycle. And I'm I am being the one to break that with my son. I never really knew about the generational cycle thing until maybe like 8 years ago. And it's amazing how that's really what those things are. And it can be as simple as, I don't know, your family didn't teach you how to laugh. It seems silly, but you know what I'm saying? We don't. Yeah.
It's very real. It's
absolutely.
very real.
So it's those cycles are a real thing. And I think having a child of my own has really pushed the gas pedal on this healing process. He's already going to be 10 this year. I have like the window is closing and closing and closing of my influence. And I don't want him learning about life or the healing process from his peers. And in a couple of years, that's going to be the number one influence in his life is going to be his friends. And so I got to get it in there while I can. And I tell him that all the time, like, your friends are your friends, but they're going to try to influence you as you get older. So it's just being a parent has really changed the trajectory of everything for me.
One thing that's really stuck out to us from your works is how you talk about the power of staying present, which is what's ringing out to me in this story you just shared. The fact that you had to keep learning to pull yourself back into the present moment when you're drifting really helped you defeat a lot of those cycles that were leading to abuse. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. So referring to like the abusive relationships, clearly those were situations where I did not have control whatsoever. My son's father was one of the abusive relationships I was in. He was so jealous and just so toxic. Like I couldn't even get up and go look out a window without him asking me, "Who are you looking at? What are you looking at?" Yeah. "What are you looking at out there?" Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So when I say the staying present thing is so monumental to me, like it sounds so silly, but I literally will sit and just stare out the window for like 5-10 minutes because I didn't used to have freedom or the control to say, I want to look out the window. Like, isn't that, it's so astounding to think that I couldn't turn and be like, "Why are you bothering me? I'm just looking out the window." I couldn't say that because it would start a fight and just, it would be downhill from there. So having lived in relationships that were extremely controlling, those little moments of staying present is like everything. It's everything to me. And it gives me a sense of control, obviously, because I get to choose in this moment. I want to sit and stare out the window for an hour and do nothing, you know?
Honestly, that sounds like being present gives you the ability to enforce your boundaries. If you're really here and you're looking out the window and you're at peace, you're not carrying all those scars, then when someone says, "Who the hell are you looking at?" You say, I'm watching the trees because I'm a human
Yeah.
being. Leave me alone and chill out.
Yeah.
And then if you're actually present, you would realize that's a crazy fucking question. A healthy, happy person isn't going to ask me what the fuck I'm staring at.
Yeah.
So really being present gives you your power back.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that healing. I really think that this life, we're trying to learn all the lessons our soul signed up for, and we do that by healing. And you have been doing a monumental job. Great word, Tim, that you've been using.
Thank you so much.
So what are some practical tools that you use to stay present on a day-to-day that someone who's stuck in that could really?
Well, I have a few. One that I have is I have to be a technology person now because that's what the rest of the world is doing. So I have a personal or a positive affirmations app on my phone. And it's so nice because you can schedule like when those positive affirmations pop up. I actually had the default schedule, but I remember one day having like the crappiest day and one of those affirmations popped up. And it was perfect because I totally reframed the thought process and, changed the direction of my day. So mental health apps, you should do your research on them. But I think positive affirmation apps are harmless. Unless they're telling you, bad things like, oh, you suck today. Like, that's not, we don't want
you
that.
Suck today.
That only works for men who are trying to work harder.
Right.
Yeah.
So that has been extremely helpful. And then, what do they call it? Like mirror work, where you stand in front of the mirror and you repeat positive affirmations. Or even if I'm having a weird day, I'll like look at myself in the mirror and be like, what are we doing today? Let's switch this up, or whatever conversation. Talking to myself has been huge. I talk to myself all the time, not to, maybe my detriment where someone's concerned about me, but certainly in those moments, where I catch myself going down the rabbit hole.
You have to change the way you talk to yourself. That's so pivotal. Thank you.
You do.
Oh my gosh.
You do, because how often during the day do you catch yourself beating yourself up like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I forget this? Oh my gosh. Self-talk, the affirmations, and then journaling. Those things have been really huge for me.
I feel like we kind of skipped over something here. I think it's really important because I want to just make sure the audience is on the same page as us here. We had talked about when did the healing start beginning for you? And you mentioned that you've always kind of found yourself on the wrong foot. I want to hear a little bit more about the history, these things that you've had to face, these traumas that you've unfortunately life dealt you in your hand, but you've faced them with such grace. Can you kind of get us kind of caught up to speed a little bit here before we jump into our next segment here?
Do you just want me to do like a overview type of situation? Because I, as a child, I was called the N-word. I was bullied. Yeah. In fourth, I think it was second or third grade, I was called the N-word by this girl in my class. Fourth grade, this girl named Tanya, she had the nickname of Blowtorch, which I really don't know why the kids called her that. So to be fair, I would call her that. So I wasn't the nicest kid either, but she told me one day on the playground, she was like, your skin is brown because you take a bath in mud every night. That's what she And this is the first time I'm laughing about it.
What in the racist
it's crazy.
Ignorance.
Yeah, that's what she said. And she had to apologize to me, obviously. I have bigger lips, and obviously when I was a kid, they didn't fit my face. So I was called Blubber Lips for a good year. Yes, on the school bus. So I had dreaded going on the bus, as a child. That lasted, like a year. So there was bullying, racism as a child. I have this white birthmark on my hand, and I used to walk around and tell kids that I used to be white because I wanted to be white when I was a kid. I did because I was like, my life.
Talk about the scars of colonialism and racism. Good God.
Yeah. So all this is happening before we get to the stuff later in life. So I would be like, yeah, I used to be white, you guys. Like, I mean, obviously nobody believed me, but I didn't want to be me. I did not want to be me as a child. And so the self-worth and the self-esteem was already pretty much non-existent as a child. So it's no wonder some of the stuff that I went through later happened. So we'll say by the time I get to college, I really did not know what I was in store for really with college, but all I knew was I'm on my own. I don't have to answer to my parents, at least while I'm on campus. So this is great. Let's go. I started partying. I had never had alcohol till I got to college. So that, I can't say that led to what I'm going to say next, but I went to a house party when I was in college. It was not affiliated with my school. It was on the other side of the state where I was living. We went to this house party. There was drinking. My friend, she was like, I have to go drop off my boyfriend. I'll be back to pick you up. Or we were going to spend the night there because these were people she knew. They didn't go to our college, but she knew them. And she's like, well, we'll just spend the night here. I'm going to drop off my boyfriend. She never came back. I'll kind of gloss over the yucky stuff, but essentially I woke up with no clothes on in a room with more than one male. At some point, something prompted them to turn on the lights. I was crying. I was one of those frozen moments. I couldn't scream, couldn't yell. They saw I was crying. I heard someone say, oh shit. And then they all left the room. The next memory I have is somebody sat with me and calmed me down. I have been drinking, so I really don't have a lot of memories of like the actual assault. I remember a lot of the stuff afterwards. Eventually my friend came to pick me up. We were headed to my parents' house for Easter dinner. We stopped at a diner. I told her what happened, and she's like, oh, well, I hope you don't think that this was my fault. That was her response. Looking back, I'm just going to say, given the new identity I had created for myself as a party girl, I, to this day, do believe that some perception of me was given to people at this party that maybe I was a good time girl or she's down for a good time. Because the stuff I know about forensic psychology and lying and stuff like that, it's very interesting that her first response was, I hope you don't think that this was my fault. Because first of all, I didn't accuse you of anything. I was just assaulted. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think it was a setup, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I got the kit done. They did find some physical evidence. I didn't have the strength at the time to report it to the police. So I just kind of carried on with life. I started binge drinking after that, to the point where I almost died of alcohol poisoning when the paramedics showed up. They couldn't find a heartbeat. I almost died that night. And that was a result of there was so much going on. I was estranged from my family. All that stuff from childhood obviously is still in there and manifesting itself. So after the binge drinking thing, the alcohol poisoning, the suicide attempt happened shortly after that, because at that point I just didn't know any other solution. The thing that stopped me was my family, but it was from the perspective of, I did not want to shame them. I did not want them to have to carry that around with them. So I can't really say I stayed alive for myself. because at that time I was still living under like the expectations of my family and trying to please them and live up to these things. So that I don't think that I ever really talked about the suicide attempt like on a therapeutic level. And so after that, I think the next year I entered my first abusive relationship. That was an extremely verbally, emotionally, psychologically abusive relationship. Very, very controlling. I did not wear makeup. I was called a slut if I put on the wrong clothes. I looked at a picture of myself from that relationship and my eyes were just dead behind the eye. It was amazing. I looked and I was like, oh my gosh. That relationship, the guy defecated on me after intercourse. Yeah. Yeah. I think he basically wanted to see if I would let him do it. And I think he probably was like, now look, we have to remember, I have the lowest self-esteem. So I'm sure he might have threatened breaking up with me, or if you really love me, you'll do this for me. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Some form of coercion.
And he defecated on me, laughed about it. I was like in shock. I mean, obviously cleaned myself up. He never talked about it again. I never talked about it again until I've just publicly started talking about that. I think maybe like last year or something.
One thing that I hope people are really hearing in this story that you're sharing right now is that in order to start healing, you have to stop hurting. As so long as you're hurting, you cannot heal or even recognize that you're hurting. You have to come into this present moment, look at what's going on objectively, talk to yourself like a friend or find a friend so that you can get away from these abusive patterns, start healing.
Yeah.
And so my kind of early on charge to the audience is it's part of each of our soul's mission to help people. You see the people around you hurting. You see how they're hurting. It's our job to help them stop hurting and start healing. Like Caralyn just said, her family is the one that got her out of this atrocious pattern that was destroying her soul and her humanity. So, Caralyn, if you're comfortable moving on, and Tim, if you don't have any follow-up questions, I do want to know, how did your family save you from this? Because it sounds like you were in your Shawshank Mile pipe and you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
To be honest with you, they did not help me in the way that you would think. And the reason I say that is I'm definitely the black sheep of my family. For sure, 1,000%. My family helped me in the sense that I realized I have to stop living for other people. I guess the stuff that they didn't provide for me is what helped me, if that makes sense. But I have to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of the stuff that I've been through, my family only probably knows about it through these recent podcast interviews. My sister and my siblings know some of my past, but I've just never had that kind of relationship with my parents where I've reached out to them for support. Every once in a while, I'll ask my mom to pray for me, but they didn't help me in the way that you would think. I guess I've seen what I don't want to be as a parent. And so I thank them for that. But I mean, my parents instilled a lot of good things in me that definitely helped me to be resilient. I mean, they taught us to be strong, be hard workers, have integrity, be kind to others. So in that sense, there was a lot of protective factors that they provided for me that outweighed those risk factors to where things could have gone even worse for me than they already had. So not probably the typical answer, but I pulled myself out of this stuff honestly for myself because I didn't necessarily have that family support where they're like, because they didn't know what was going on. To be fair, they did not always know what was going on to be able to provide that support. But as I've gotten older, I've come to grips with the kind of support I would need from them. They just aren't capable of providing that. And that's just, you have to meet people where they are. And that's a true statement. You meet people where they are. So they've helped me, but just not in the traditional way, maybe.
I think that's a very relatable connection, though. You know, a lot of people, especially in our generational area, Aaron has said it multiple times on this show, but we're finding ourselves as a tower generation where we're looking down and seeing like these were problems. You know, we're not healing necessarily from what we were taught, but we're healing from the lack thereof. You know, we see the void and we know it needs to be filled. How could you know to talk to your family about this? Because they always, and this is nothing against them, right? We talked about it. It's generational traumas.
They're going through their own shit.
But if they didn't teach you to talk about emotions and to, you know, have a sense of therapy with your family, how are you supposed to know you can do that? You know,
and
you've matured and grown from that. Sorry,
no,
I didn't mean to cut
you're
you off
fine.
there.
And my mom tried. I mean, there was a couple situations that I had with her that broke my trust to be able to share things with her. So they tried, and I had friends, so that was always good. But yeah, at the heart of it, just that family support wasn't there. But I also think as a society, we need to make it okay that families don't fit a cookie cutter thing. If you're estranged from your family for peace or whatever the case may be, fine. Like, you got to do it. Sometimes you have to disconnect yourself from your family. That doesn't mean you're anti-family or you're some heartless person. You have to do things for the good of yourself in terms of finding peace and happiness and contentment and being okay with boundaries. Like, I feel like people turn their noses up at people. Oh, you don't talk to your family. Well, no, because it's not helpful for me. Why am I going to do something that's not helpful? Like, is it helpful for you to go eat sticks of butter and clog your arteries? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's not.
Yes. Oh my God. So, you just hit the nail on the head and summarized one of my favorite episodes, which was Find Your People, with one of Tim's favorite quotes, "Family don't end in blood, but it don't start there neither." So now that you've given us such a beautiful example of that and almost a definition, could you point out how you managed to self-rescue through all of this trauma, these trials, these tribulations? Because like you said, I mean, this is the title of our most recent Aaron and Tim chat. You had to self-rescue. So how did you do it? What are the actionable steps that Caralyn 5, 10, 20 years ago should be taking?
I'll tell you one thing actually that was extremely helpful for me in learning that no one's going to save me. When I returned home for my freshman year of college, I wanted to go out to hang out with a girlfriend to go to the bar. My mom was like, "No, I think you should stay home tonight." And I'm thinking, like, what? I just spent a whole year at college on my own doing whatever I want. Like, I'm not going to stay home. I think it was like 7:00 at night. I was like, I'm not staying home. So she went and got groceries. I called up my friend. I was like, "Come pick me up. I'm moving out." I wrote my mom a note. I packed up all my clothes. I moved out. I never went back. And they told me, "You want to be grown? You want to get out on your own? That's fine. Help from us is not going to happen anymore." And I get it. They were well within their rights, I think, because I was an adult. I wanted to be an adult. I had a job. And that honestly was a really good thing for me because it taught me right off the bat, no one's going to come save me. I have left the nest. From here on out, I already know my parents aren't going to bail me out. It's up to me. And honestly, the self-rescue thing stemmed from that, and just the realization throughout life that truly nobody is going to come to save you. Yes, people are going to check up on you. Yes, they're going to make suggestions, but nobody is going to come and save you. Even when you're leaving an abusive relationship, yes, you have safe places to go. But in the biggest sense of it, those people are not really rescuing you. They're sheltering you and all of that stuff, but rescuing and saving, we want to also evolve from those things. As harsh as it is, I would have to say for my self-rescuing, the number one thing is just knowing that no one's going to bail me out. It's up to you. No one's going to save you from that. And I think maybe at best, my parents maybe taught me some survival skills, but the survival mode too, I think kept me in the self-rescuing, which is not necessarily the healthiest thing to be in survival mode. But when you are, it's go, 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 go. You don't really have time to sit and feel sorry for yourself. The saying that nobody's going to come save you, be your own hero. Major perspective I can give on that is what's been a guiding force. And I just don't know if I was born to just be a survivor. I guess my parents did instill in us, you don't quit, you don't give up. So I would say that has always stuck with me throughout life in the self-rescuing.
Yeah, it's like your parents gave you the tools, but told you have to still go
Yep,
build the
yeah.
house. And it harkens back to that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can't force somebody to take the first step of healing through these traumas. But once you take that first step, my door is wide open, right? Like, I will gladly give you the shelter, but I can't rescue you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they want to be that person. There's that, pretty popular ideology that goes around on the internet of like, oh, I can fix him, or I can save him, or I can fix her, or whatever. And a lot of that, a lot of those are typically just internet jokes and whatnot. But there's a little bit of truth behind there. People will find them a person who is like, damaged, and they're like, I'm going to date that person because I can fix them.
Me.
But that was you.
Me, yeah.
I think it's very important to mention that
absolutely.
Was you. And now you're here telling people like, nope, don't go down that path. That's not the smart move.
Please don't. Please don't.
Yeah, please.
I think you just said something incredibly important about evolution and how our soul is evolving, because you have to learn the lesson that your parents have learned. Their soul has already done a ton of work to get this lesson, and you have to take that on board. One of the ones that our whole generation picked up from the whole previous generation is that of hard work. You have to be diligent in what you're doing. And when we let sloth override that, we're no longer driving towards our purpose. But we can't just rest on their laurels. We also have to keep getting better. So the best science they had was work hard every single day. Now we're learning that we also need to engage in self-care and balance.
Yeah.
And a sub-theme that I want to give to the critics, you also said that you have to be grateful for the rain, but you can't really do that if you don't have a roof over your head. If you know anyone who wants to talk about homelessness and possible solutions, send them our way.
I thought you were going to say somebody who wants to talk about roofs. I'm like, yeah, those are important.
But what's the next thing you want to talk about, Tim or Caralyn?
Actually, so one key thing that's really been driving home lately on our show here, Caralyn, is the discussion of depression and anxiety. And you've written some very honest things talking about anxiety and depression showing up physically, whether that's fatigue, disassociation, dread. What do you wish people understood more about those experiences?
I want people to understand that nobody is choosing to have some of these mental illness symptoms. Like, I don't get up in the morning and on my to-do list, not take a shower, not eat, lay in bed. Like, I'm not choosing. Well, okay, I choose to not take a shower, but the choice of that is not me wanting to be dirty. Like, I physically sometimes don't have the energy. You feel
I feel that.
Like stuck. You literally are stuck. You're like, I have to take a shower, and you just thinking about even turning the water on. It seems like the most exhausting task. It's not a choice. You're not choosing to do these things. Like, We're just not.
That was literally me last
Yeah.
night. I couldn't take a shower until this morning, but I have to give myself grace and compassion.
Absolutely.
To understand that that's the best I could
Yep.
do.
Absolutely.
So that's how we help and heal and rescue
Yeah.
others is if that's the best they can do, meet them with fucking grace.
Exactly.
And if you can help them take that next step, do
Yep.
it. If they say, I can't even shower right now, you could ask, why? Do you need your laundry done? I would love to come do your
Right.
laundry.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have a clean towel? I'll bring you a
Yep.
towel. You know, whatever level of service you're comfortable with, that's going to go a long freaking way.
I mean, and I would like to be brutally honest too about these symptoms, because I'm sure there's people out there that can relate. And this will be my first time kind of speaking on this. So after I had my son, I had really bad postpartum depression. I probably went days, maybe weeks without showering. I was not always brushing my teeth. So we'll go with the teeth thing. I wouldn't go to the dentist because I was so embarrassed. I mean, at some point I would brush my teeth. I wasn't going months without brushing my teeth. Let me clarify that. But it was not a daily thing.
Yeah.
And I put off going to the dentist for years because I was so embarrassed of them thinking that I was purposely trying to have grody teeth. And I had to snap myself out of that, because at some point you have to try to reframe those everyday tasks that seem so exhausting as self-care. You know, like, thank God. I mean, the dentist actually was like, you have extremely healthy teeth for not having been to the dentist in so many years, which I was so grateful for that. However, I had to look at it as, it's a self-care thing, girl. You gotta take care of yourself. You gotta take care of your teeth. I mean, dental problems can cause all sorts of health problems, honestly, but it's gross. People are probably like, ew, I wonder if I knew her in the non-teeth brushing era. Well, yeah, you probably did. But hey, I was showing up for life. It was more important to me to be able to go to work than to have energy to brush my teeth.
This is so incredibly important. You just gave us an example of how critical self-care is and how the Jocko stuff doesn't work. You know, he'll get up at 4 a.m., make your bed. That's your first win of the day. When the best you can do is noon.
Yeah.
That's just shit advice. Yeah. If the best you can do is to get out of bed, make your bed is the worst piece of advice you can give that person.
Yeah.
Like you said before, Caralyn, you have to meet someone where they are. And maybe 1% of the population is at the step of get up at 4 a.m. and make your bed.
Yeah.
For 99% of people, that's shit advice.
I agree.
For most people, the best advice is give yourself grace and ask for help whenever you need it and whenever you can.
Yes. And
because people don't know what you're going through.
Absolutely.
If you're isolated or being ostracized.
Absolutely.
So find your people and then learn how to communicate.
Yes, because I do have a problem sometimes with people who are upset with, like, why didn't you check up on me? Or I was just going through this. Well, did you tell them? Like, that's not fair to get on them for not supporting you if you're not sharing that stuff with them. So I think there's a fine line, and I get it's hard to open up to people about those mental health struggles, but at the same time, you cannot chastise somebody for not being in your corner or supporting you if they don't even know what's wrong. Because I just have I can't stand that. It really hurts my heart for the other person who's really with the best intentions trying to help somebody, but it's just being or maybe they're trying to respect boundaries. But in any event, you can't get mad when the support doesn't show up if they don't know that you need support. See, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to be willing to put yourself out there a little bit. And like you said, when you find your people, I have tons of people now that I can tell this no shower, didn't brush my teeth story, and they're not going to judge me for it or whatever the case may be. But you got to be willing to meet in the middle. We have to have a survivor mentality and not a victim mentality. A victim mentality means that you're, oh, woe is me. You're never reaching out for help, but you're also complaining about nobody helping you. I'm a very sweet, kind-hearted person, but I can also be very blunt and be like, you got to just shake yourself up sometimes and not be the victim. A survivor is able to reach out. A survivor is able to evolve. It might take you the rest of your life, but you've got to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to do the work because nobody can do it for you. They can attempt to, but you have to do it.
So I think this is the evolution of have your cake and eat it too. I think what we need to be saying and thinking is you have to learn how to make a cake before you can eat it.
Yeah. You got to bake it. You got to eat it. You got to do it all.
You have to get the supplies.
Yeah,
you have to get the ingredients. So you have to know the ingredients. So many people don't know what will cause their own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So how the hell can you start baking a cake if you don't have the freaking ingredients?
Absolutely. And you need to,
If you weren't given a family recipe, you have to find the recipe.
Comment down below and tell me what makes your cake.
Right. Yeah, and you got to have that self-awareness. You have to, at some point, realize that you're the common denominator, because while I did not deserve to be treated like crap by some of these toxic boyfriends, who else was in the relationship? I was. So what was I? Now, this is not excuse if I was abused or cheated on, whatever. However, there was something in me that wasn't enough, that I was looking for that in relationships and the wrong people. So I just feel like there's always opportunities for that self-awareness, but you have to be willing to be brutally honest. You can't sugarcoat it and be like, well, sometimes I'm a little passive aggressive. No, girl, that's your name of the game, is passive aggressive people pleaser. You have to get tough with yourself. You got to get tough with yourself. I've gotten tough with myself. Like, girl, stop acting like that. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop. You know, it's a lot of work, but you got to be willing to do it.
You know, you've talked a lot about in your writings about self-worth and that you had to relearn how to believe you were enough. And that kind of stuff, it really hit us. So I'm curious, right? When did you start believing that I am worthy again?
You know what? I think, unfortunately, and I don't know if this is like a good or bad thing, but I think I've always found a lot of my worth in accomplishments. Surprisingly, through all of these traumas and stuff, I was able to get college degrees. I think the fact that I was able to achieve goals and was even able to have goals or dreams during those hard times was what just kind of like kept me going. And I think I'm like, hey, I am capable of doing things. I was in the shadow of my siblings a lot growing up. They were in this special choir and this club and this student of the week, and all the teachers knew them and like, oh, you're so-and-so sister. So I always kind of felt like, oh, I guess maybe I wasn't meant to achieve things like that, but it was all in the self-confidence. So the older I got and my self-confidence was rebuilt, I was getting straight A's in school. I was achieving this. So it's like, gosh, I could achieve the same things as my siblings that I thought I couldn't. And again, it's not about competition or anything, but, you know, I think those small wins and those glimmers, I think is the new term. When you have those little small wins of even, oh, I did my laundry today. You know, the small wins really help with the self-worth, I think, even more so than telling yourself. I mean, it's important to say I'm pretty and I'm this and I'm that, but it's just as important to applaud yourself for getting out of bed, for not losing it on your neighbor or whatever the case may be.
Dude, that is so critically important that you're telling everyone to find more glimmers if they want their life to be more beautiful.
Yeah.
You are absolutely correct. We're probably going to have to bring you back because there's so much we didn't cover.
Yeah, I would love to come back anytime, you guys. Seriously.
But before we close, we'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't ask this question. Let's just take a second and talk about Darkness to Dialogue. So, what inspired that name, and what's the core message you're trying to express through that medium?
The reason I'm laughing is because my blog was born from a very negative situation that happened with me. A business thing kind of fell through. I found out this person was being shady. They were about to take me for the ride of my life, and not in a good way. And so that really threw a wrench in my plans, because this is when I was getting ready to tell my story and be doing all these things. I was pissed. Like,
Yeah.
I was pissed because I had looked at this person as a friend. And when you break my trust and I find out you're being shady, all bets, like, I was so mad. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do now? And seriously, that's when my blog was born. I was like, okay, I've already put myself out here as I have all these big announcements. So you know what? I'm going to start my blog. I'd always wanted to start a blog. I was like, why not make it about mental health? This is my own space to say whatever the heck I want, to be honest about mental health, to encourage other people to. It just kind of went from there. And I just wanted to create something for everybody. It's like all these, PR people like, oh, you got to market this and market that. Well, no, like, everybody needs to have good mental health. I don't care if I'm a woman.
Just be a
Right.
blessing.
Everybody, older people, younger people, kids, teachers, law enforcement, whomever. Like, I don't want to make my blog necessarily limited to
Preach.
just because I'm a woman, I need to just raise awareness among women. Well, I mean, I get that, but I'm for the people, as they say. You know what I mean? I just want everybody. And it's getting popularity internationally even. And it's so much bigger than I ever thought. But I just want to be a part of something positive, something good. I want people to maybe read something on there and feel better about themselves and better about their journey. And even people who are just learning about mental health. That's why I try my best to provide research-based information, because even with my son, if my son asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I don't just make something up. I literally look it up, because I don't want to perpetuate, misinformation in any kind of sense. So that blog, I literally built it just short of not creating the platform that it's on, but I built it from scratch, not knowing what the hell I was doing, because I'm not a techie. It's just something that I'm really, really proud of, and it's something that's like mine.
It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like this blog, not only is it intended to help others, but it also sounds like it helps you as well.
It does. I love it. Like, even though I've created a lot of work for myself, I love blogging. Like, if I'm having a bad day, these are the glimmers, I guess. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I'll put a blog together, like selecting the pictures. It's just like creating like my own little nerdy academic / personal thing. It has saved me a lot. It helps me get my thoughts out there, and it's just a good outlet for me, for sure.
I have an amazing quote here, and keep in mind, these are your own words. So, but healing is a process, not always linear, but I've learned that even small steps forward are worth celebrating.
We've been saying.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is a beautiful overarching message from you to our listeners and to the world as well. These glimmers, these small steps that bring you from the dark to the light, the little sparks that turn into this bright light and let you shine and be your own light. No matter how you want to put it, if you want to follow Aaron and I's pathway and say, be your own light, if you want to talk about glimmers, because that's how we're talking about it today, it doesn't matter. What matters is you're celebrating those small things.
Go, Timmy. It's your birthday.
Celebrate. Exactly. Right. My birthday's in a couple of months. My birthday present this year is going to be amazing.
Bless.
There's one thing that was really striking my heart when you were telling me your story, especially about your time in college, Caralyn. And I know for a fact you're not alone, right? I have heard this same story so many times, and it breaks my heart, but I am so glad that we have a platform where we can help continue to tell people you're not alone. The trauma that you're facing, we can face it together. I can't force you to drink the water and make that first step, but I will give you a place where you need to recover. And you're doing the same thing out there. You're this positive force for goodness, and I love it. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Well,
My
thank
God.
you guys for giving me the opportunity to share part of my journey and stuff. A year ago, I would have never been on a podcast. Because shame, you have shame sometimes. You wonder, like, what are people going to think? But at some point, you just don't care about it, because I am more willing to just deal with that, knowing that maybe even one person will hear even one sentence of what I've said this whole time, and it will strike a chord in them and light a fire under them, or whatever it does for them at that point in their life. It's all worth it.
Caralyn, thank you. Your honesty, your courage, your entire presence here today has taught me that we're here to heal everyone. We're trying to reach a lot of men and teaching them that they have to heal themselves so they don't hurt others. So they don't hurt women. They don't, the life bringers. And they don't hurt other men who are going to perpetrate violence. Then, once we're all healed, we can start to freaking learn. We can learn together. We can grow together. And it's really our individual creativity that's going to flourish and change the world if we're able to accomplish that.
Special guest.
So, Caralyn,
Special guest.
thank you so much for teaching me that today.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. For someone like me who really didn't think people noticed me or cared what the hell I had to say, like, truly, you guys and your kind words really mean everything. They really do.
You are seen. You are heard. Everyone liked the video for Caralyn. We'll let her know how many likes she gets. Dude.
I do want to say real quick, if you're listening to this and you've been carrying a lot of pain silently, we really hope this episode reminds you that healing isn't about perfection. It's not about hiding your shame or, burying those emotions deep down. It's about showing up one tiny, brave moment at a time. Caralyn has made her steps, and here she is, talking on a podcast about her experiences. She's doing it not only to help herself heal, but to help at least one person out there. And I can't imagine anything braver than that.
If you want to hear more from her, be sure you follow Caralyn's blog, Darkness to Dialogue. We're going to have all her links in the show notes. Caralyn, where else can the people find you?
I'm everywhere. Like, I'm literally on all the platforms. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on X or Twitter. I'm on Clapper. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. And all of those platforms are just Caralyn Dreyer. It's in some form of my name, where you can find me, but I'm everywhere, because I'm like, if this blog fails, I'll know, it's not going to be because I didn't have myself everywhere that it could possibly be. So
that's one of our last lessons for this episode. If you're healing, don't keep it to yourself. Recover out loud. If you got anything from this episode, share it. If this reminded you of somebody, start a conversation with that person. They're waiting for you to initiate their healing.
And I also do allow guest bloggers on my blog. I have a monthly mental health spotlight feature. So there's plenty of ways, even on my blog, if people want to share their stories or whatever, just reach out to me. If you're not a writer, I can help you out with that. But don't don't let something stop you from sharing your story. And if I and my blog can help people in that way, I'm more than happy to do that for sure.
I am a terrible writer, but I still love doing it. If that tells anybody else out there, they should give it a shot.
Do it.
I do want to say really quick, I want to thank the listeners. Please go give Caralyn your support. She's doing an amazing work out there. And we would really appreciate it if you would give a like and possibly a subscribe to us and maybe leave a comment. What was your favorite piece of advice? Or, as we said earlier, what ingredients go into your cake? But thank all of you for joining us on this journey. And we still have so much more in the tank. So we're going to be here. We're going to keep showing up one tiny brave moment at a time.
Really quick, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon members. So up at the top, Ketria Hausner. You know we love you. Eric Spears just had his birthday. Wish Eric a happy birthday.
No
Highland
doubt.
Markle. If you like the way this podcast sounds, it's because of Highland. And I have been pushing him every day to release more music. So make sure you follow him and stay on the lookout for his music. Casey. Thank you. You are one of the people I think about most often whenever I need strength to be brave and face my healing. Jason Grooms, you guys know him. You love him. He's coming back on the show here soon. Round of applause for Jason, folks. Nick Horton, an amazing friend of ours. He's got a few episodes out. He's got more episodes coming. Again, you know him. You love him. Jake, I hate you. Come fight me. I bet you won't. Kellyanne, I know Tim loves you. We're here for you, whatever you need. Brooks, you're my boy Blue. Keep dropping tracks. We have so many metalheads that we love. Keep feeding their soul. Riley, thank you for your episode. Caralyn, I think you would really love listening to this episode because he gives us the best description of depression that we've ever heard. And then the queen herself, Deborah Wallace, thank you. Huge shout out to Anthony's Express here in the area. Best detailers around.
Let's just keep making space for real stories, real growth, and real light. So, be good to yourselves and each other.
We love you.
Peace!
Final reminder, our podcast cannot be substituted for professional medical advice. If you need help now, please call 911 or text or call 988 for immediate intervention. If you want protracted support, you can use our link over on BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/NSLP. Gets you 10% off your first month and helps the channel grow quite a bit.
Thank you.
Get the help you deserve. Do it. Do it now.
Like and subscribe.
No street lights, but we're finding our way in the dark, but we've got some